Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice, at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
Hi, this is Ed Cohen in San Diego, California. It's about 8 a.m. here. And May gray, let's see, I'm looking out the window, no sun yet. And we're right here by the Pacific Ocean. And our special guest today is in the London, UK area, Dr. Adrian Moule. Welcome, Dr. Moule.
Thank you, Ed. How are you?
Just great, thank you. So
Excellent.
You and I go back a number of years through different things, off and on, staying in touch. And you've had a number of experiences, mostly managing large organizations at the executive level, oversight of international assignees, and all things connected with management properly of that group. So you're in official retirement now, but you're actually a glutton for punishment here. You're trying to help other companies do their work, especially in this post-COVID, or hopefully it'll come fast post-COVID, and back to normal, which means companies will be many more. There are some still doing it, but many more companies will reinvigorate their programs to some extent. Would you like to comment a little bit about that? Don't you think that the numbers of physical transfers will, at least in the short term, say the rest of this year, not go anywhere, and there'll be more business trips, perhaps, everybody vaccinated properly, and I think, and a lot of visual like this.
No, I think business trips, they've been on hold. And I do want to talk about things like business travel compliance, but certainly business trips, they will start again because they've kind of been on hiatus. They'll start again. Assignments, I mean, who knows? Things seem to be getting better. Then there's another wave, and then you hear about different variants. So, I mean, certainly in the last company that I worked in that I just left, we only had one assignment, I think, in literally the last 12 months. And that was a relatively just a cross-border, immediately across the border. So I just don't see big companies really ramping up the programs like they did, 5-10 years ago. But I think they will. It will come back, but it's not going to be 6 months. It's not going to be a year. I think it's really going to have to be, 18 months, 2 years, till it's really all over and it's business as usual.
So over the years, this company has produced, with me leading it, over 350 live meetings, going back 25 years. But our last live meetings were in 2020, February 13 in LA, February 25 in New York City, and in Times Square. And then February 27 was the last one, and it was on Embassy Row in Washington, D.C. And all of those were sellout meetings and various sizes, what we filled the rooms. And then it all stopped. Poof.
Yeah, the world stopped.
Yeah, so said, well, what do we know how to do, and what should we do with all the contacts and all the information and know-how and relationships? Says, well, bring them into connection using Zoom. And so I had never, ever even turned the darn thing on. Never mind sit in front of it for more than 2 minutes. So Paul gave me some lessons and we stumbled through things. So the shows today are far more relaxed and efficient than earlier ones. So let's jump into things. We're not going to go in order here, but
Sure.
you know, I know that you're very adept at handling crazy stuff. So here we go.
We'll see.
Yeah. ROI.
Yes.
Measuring ROI is like a fictional thing. It's like in a galaxy far away. How do you measure? Well, the ROI of a virtual international assignment will be terrific, as opposed to a live sending somebody and, you know, the family issues and, oh my God, all these crazy things.
Yeah.
You have all of this experience.
I've never seen a good definition, in all honesty. I really haven't. I mean, if you take a business, you've got a piece of equipment, you write it down over 5 years or 10 years, you know what you've invested, you could perhaps assign some kind of profitability to that process or equipment, whatever, and then you can calculate the ROI. Very straightforward. How can you do that with someone going on assignment unless they are specifically, you know, in commercial, or if they're a very high level like the CEO or maybe the CFO? I just don't think you can do it. So I get frustrated when people talk about ROI without really defining what they mean. Because you know, I would think that, okay, if I were to go on a extended business trip, say 2 weeks or something, or 3 weeks, and during that time I'm supposed to meet up with locals and make a relationship better, and maybe even close a sale or solve a specific problem, and then move on to the next city and the next situation, all of which had been set up somehow in advance. So I parachute in, try to do something, and then move on to the next, and then 2-3 weeks later fly back, and then continue the long distance assignment virtual. Yeah. Having met the locals and, you know, had tea or whatever, and we, I would think that's a measurable ROI if it's defined to do certain things like that. I think in that context, I would agree. I think when we're talking about longer term assignments, and it very much depends on the role. Because one of the things I wanted to talk about was really the whole talent management piece. And it really starts with creating the business case for the assignment in the first place. So there are still a lot of companies out there that send people on an assignment and there's no business case. So I think it's really critical that companies actually know why they're sending someone. So, you know, what is the intended ROI? Or is it not an ROI question? Is it that you have someone that's high potential and it's just more an investment at this stage and you simply want to invest in them and develop them? So that's more of a talent development type of assignment. ROI, I think, for assignees, as I say, is very difficult. And sometimes it's mixed. You may have both, because you may have someone, you know, you kind of send someone on a talent development. They have to go there for a project or for a reason. You know, we don't have the luxury of just throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars at an assignee and say, we'll see you in a year's time. and see how you've developed. It just doesn't work like that.
So there have been, over the past year, some integrated energy companies, Canada and the US, who have not slowed down their movement. They've somehow get people to relocate. Or a group moves, just move.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that will still be the case for that type of industry, because a lot of it can be offshore. It might be remote, on a remote site, where you've got a gang or a team of people, or it's a startup. You're laying down a pipeline or whatever. So oil and gas is a very clear industry where you can do that. But you're not going to do that with banking, for example, because that's going to be city-based and you're going to be in offices. And with all the cross-border closures, it's going to take a long time before that becomes the norm again.
So that's because of uncertainty about who's safe to be with?
Well, this is down to government's decisions. I mean, Saudi Arabia, for example, where I was working, they literally closed the border for months. And it's been the same with Australia. I think unless you are an Australian national, you hold a passport, even now you can't get into Australia. So if you're an assignee, if you want to send someone to Australia now, and they're not an Australian national, or don't hold a passport, then it's not going to happen. So it's very much a reflection of the current times that we're in. Hopefully within the next few months, we'll see that start to relax.
So that's a direct relationship to the vaccine.
I believe so, yeah, and also herd immunity. I mean, it's not my area of expertise, clearly.
I've had both vaccines. In fact, Joanne and I've had both. We did the Moderna, no side effects at all, really, other than just being a little tired. It was nothing. I know some people got impacted more, but we had nothing. And we got the vaccines early in the process, last early February. We were in a sort of a trial. We've volunteered. Show me up.
Yeah.
I'm to do it again. I'm ready.
Yeah.
So I know some people don't want to do that. They're afraid, or they have allergies, or there's something else. But it's a sense of liberation. And now in California, which where we are here, of course, it's a big place, 40 million people, it stretches out 1,500 miles. But last winter, it was hit hard. The state was hit hard by infection, and they weren't ready for it. But everybody got together. They wore the masks. People lined up in droves to get millions, got the vaccines in the last few months. And now, like, the disease rate is almost hasn't disappeared, but almost. Just like that, bang. And it's like a miracle. And now everything's opening up. I mean, it's like, maybe too fast, I don't know, but it's a sense of like, okay, let's get moving again. And I have to tell you, the freeways are jammed, and the streets just right here, and this is Touristville right here in downtown San Diego. And now they're popular again. The hotels are filling up. And for months after months, it was a ghost town. Really, it was depressing. But now, and the real estate business is absolutely booming. People are, they're moving out of smaller places out. They're not moving out of California like you hear in the news. They're moving to exurbs, not just suburbs, but moving out. Where they work from home a lot, high speed, and they have more space. Why should they be in a cramped area?
Absolutely.
So tell me about international assignments, most recently, in your experience, based in Saudi. STC is a huge company, all throughout the Middle East, right?
Yes, they're throughout the Middle East, branching out into Singapore, also potentially expanding into the UK, into Jordan, possibly Japan. It's the #1 brand in the Middle East. $60 billion company, number 8 in the world in telecoms, Forbes top, I think 140. So it's a very, very big company.
So that means you would relocate news people or advertising salespeople?
Well, it's telecoms, so there's wholesale sales. The company itself is rebranded, so it's just like STC now. It doesn't really stand for anything. It used to be Saudi Telecom Company, but it's now just simply like STC. So you don't really think of IBM, for example, as International Business Machines. That's kind of history. Like BP is no longer British Petroleum. It's just BP. So it's the same kind of concept. They've really moved on from the core of just pure telecoms. So it's internet, data storage, data security, wholesale, mobile sales, everything related to telecoms, satellite, and even real estate, actually. So they're a very big conglomerate.
So now, are they shedding real estate, or everything's just sort of on hold?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the real estate is very much within the kingdom. They're also they purchased Vodafone's operations in Egypt as well. So that was a big deal as well. So obviously Egypt's going to be a big company for them as well. So it's all the core telecoms, but everything surrounding that as well.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
The expertise that you've picked up, not only from there, but in oil and gas and these other large, what you call Tier 1, that means big
ones,
time.
Yeah, big brands, yeah.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of questions on that experience, but taking the experience now into consultancy, that means that you're, what, a CEO whisperer? What does that mean?
Not quite CEO. Normally it's the CHRO. So in the consultant roles that I've been doing, I've been working closely with the top management, usually the top tier of HR. So I've been sitting in the same room. I was reporting to the CHRO in STC. So it's a question of bringing in this experience and saying, okay, this is what we're doing here in this company. What have we done in other companies? What are the what's the best practice that we can bring in? So let's look at things like the processes, talent management. There's a lot of talent management which is not really used in many companies. It becomes too transactional. I wanted to bring in a bigger focus in terms of what are these guys costing? What are we doing in terms of compliance? How can we improve that? But more, how can we improve the processes to join everything up? Because if you take, a lot of these big companies I've worked with in the past, you're kind of in the middle. So you're not involved at the beginning. You're not involved in the selection process. You're simply told your first port of call is when you get the call or the email saying we're sending, Dave to Houston. We wanted to start last week. So kept moving and off you go. What I've tried to do in the last certainly with STC and the previous companies is start to look at more the talent selection piece as well. So let's get involved with
more a match.
Yeah, let's work with the business partners. So before we send anyone, we're actually involved in organizing the interviews.
Perfect.
In doing talent selection. We created different talent pools. So there's less of the old school tap on the shoulder. It was more, we have a business need, go find someone to fill that business
And so that mitigates your risk.
It totally does, because I came into STC in 2019, and the first thing I did was look at some of the statistics, and I saw immediately that 55% of all returnees were leaving within 12 months.
Wow.
Now, that takes you back to your ROI question. That is a really bad ROI. So I said, okay, what's the root cause? What's causing this? Now, the cause I'm not saying STC, it's all companies. Someone goes on assignment and the business is like that. All right, they've gone, not interested. Not interested from a talent management perspective. Talent management perspective, not interested in their career. There's no mentor assigned, and there's no planning for when they come back. So why
was that? Because the people up above had the full of it, or they said, "What are we doing all this for?" Or they didn't have the experience, so they didn't know what they were doing in this regard.
I think a lot of it is cultural. It's not my responsibility. So Dave goes to Houston. I'm his business partner at home. I'm now no longer interested in Dave. It's now up to Houston. I think that's the biggest issue, and it's exactly what I saw in the last company I was with. And they said, well, once they go, we have no interest in them, which is not what I want to hear. And they say, well, that's now your responsibility. So, and I've never seen that anywhere. So I think, fine, okay, I'll take that responsibility. So how are we as a global mobility function going to support those assignees now they're on assignment? And this is now about creating relationships with the home business partner, the host business partner, with the manager to get ongoing feedback, ongoing L&D opportunities for the assignee, and mentoring and following up on things like performance management. But it all starts with the selection, Ed, in the first place. So I'm sending Dave to Houston. I want to know what he's going to do, what he's going to achieve, what does success look like, but what is he going to do when he comes back? So are there development opportunities for him in Houston, and how are they going to help the business at home, and how do we get him there? So
may I ask, if you don't mind, if I can jump in with a question?
Of course.
Because you've inserted yourself into this process, let's assume that you've been accepted, that the stakeholders down the corridor or somewhere else saying, what did you get your PhD in?
Chemistry, as it happens. Yeah.
And how come you're doing this? Interfering with our management process, quote unquote.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It goes back to what I call root cause analysis.
Okay, so do you get the assignee, Dave, in Houston, to somehow write a daily diary of, or I get up at 5 a.m. at 6 a.m. I'm talking to this person, I'm doing this thing, so that they can prove development, talent development, and problem solving.
Yeah, it's something along those lines. What we did, we created what I called a global mobility business partner. So I had someone in my team who was assigned to the assignees to essentially guide them through the process. So we actually process mapped each stage of the assignment, from selection through to repatriation.
So this is an engineering process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, lots of flow diagrams and quest diamonds.
And it's a guy. Let's just assume it's a guy. And this guy's going to. He's assigned to do something in Houston. I don't know what, but it's somebody has given him an assignment project. And so when that is over, or there's progress or an issue comes up it's an obstacle, does he report back in, and then does he get some guidance about, do you go through the obstacle or you go around it?
Yeah, in terms of delivering on his project, that's really down to the business, to his management. The role that we are adopting was one more of his development. So if he's going to have to learn a new core skill, let's see how we can deliver that. So we liaise with the L&D departments in both home and host to see where it can be best delivered. We also get updates on the performance, and we can see, what's missing. So you can say, is he on target to achieve what he said he was going to achieve, or what we thought he might achieve when we sent him on assignment? So that's more the role, rather than actual, the delivering on the project itself.
So then, having that knowledge, you could then measure, well, Dave has done this or couldn't do that because either he didn't know what to do or nobody gave him any help.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if we want to elaborate more, going back to your very opening point about ROI, what you're starting to do here is to lay the foundation for a number of measures of ROI. So ROI isn't just one thing. So if we take our case of Dave, who we've planned, the ROI there would be, for me, certainly retention. He stays with the company. We've invested a huge amount of money. He stays with the company. He gets promoted. He finds a successor.
And he mentors the successor. He's a coach.
His successor. These are all measures of success. So there's not one single ROI. It's a whole bunch of things that make a successful assignment, with him staying and ultimately being promoted. And there you've got your investment back.
And then hopefully Dave is given a mentoring role for the person who's going to follow his footsteps to take the new relationships or the improved situation and relationships forward. And then there's a history, a story.
Exactly, yes.
Boy, that's how to measure the ROI.
There you go. We've solved it.
So why? So the guy, let's assume it's a guy who says, well, Dave is going to Houston. He's out of my hair. I don't ever want to see him, talk with him. I mean, I got other things to do with him, without him. So it's as simple as that, because it's not in that silo.
Yeah. again, it comes back to the planning. What we don't want to do is send someone on assignment with the objective of returning him, and I will say him just to be generic here, of returning him to his original position. That for me is a failure. If someone goes on assignment, is out there 2 or 3 years and comes back to the same position, same department.
And it's not there, right?
No.
Right. And nobody knows what to do with the guy.
No. That's a failure. A success is if he comes back at a higher level in a different department. That's success. And that's what needs to be worked on. So you plan it at the very beginning. You work on it hand in hand, and then he comes back.
And that's the engineering of the progression.
Yeah. And you don't just do it the week before that he's due to come back. This is ongoing. So if I say to my guy, who was a guy called Tarek, by the way, excellent guy. If I say, hey, Tarek, what's happening with Dave? He should be able to turn around and say ABC, and he's due to come back in 6 months. And I've already started liaising with the business partners at home to find him that position, to see when it's going to be available.
So let's shift a little bit now, and maybe with Dave in mind or somebody else. I'm just with storytelling here. International remote working issues. And when the employee is out there alone, there's no structure where that person is. So they're live, they're not virtual.
Yeah, this makes me nervous. This makes me very, very nervous. There's a lot of companies now permitting this remote working. Oh, you go and work, you work for us, we'll keep you on payroll here, but we keep your bank account here, but you can go to Germany, to France, to Spain, wherever, and work from there. I mean, the problem you've got is that people that are taking these decisions do not have a clue about employment law, about tax, social security, immigration, contracts, legal, everything around that, PE risk, all of these issues. It's an absolute minefield. And there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done on this.
And the minefield creates a problem, maybe not for that Dave, but for the company, because
both.
Because the company is a big target.
Yeah, the people that are making these decisions are typically not in global mobility. So they're making decisions without having the knowledge, which is, we talk about business travel as well. This is in the same area. The problem with both business travel, remote working, is that people making the decisions don't have the knowledge. Now, they typically don't fall under global mobility because global mobility is assignments. And we're going to start from 3 months only. And we're only worried about short-term assignments and long-term assignments. And maybe we'll help out with a permanent transfer. But everything comes under global mobility. I think as soon as you touch immigration, tax, employment law, social security, you've got to involve global mobility. And that's the same with business travel.
So the executives, unless they've been given this lesson, they don't know until it's too late.
Well, I think they do know. I think some know, some do not know. Those that do know may choose to ignore the risks in many cases because it's never happened. We've always done this. It's never been a problem until it's a problem. And then, when you get a CEO that's stopped at the border and either thrown in jail for 24 hours or deported, when that happens, then it becomes a problem. Then they'll do something about it. But I would certainly encourage all companies to have a business travel policy, business travel compliance policy. And there's plenty of software out there. There's plenty of tax vendors out there. There are solutions. All the big four have solutions. A lot of the reload companies have solutions. A lot of the smaller second tier tax advisors have solutions. And something that I put in place in INEO, and I was putting in place in STC as well.
So in your current new role, is it your wish that that you could get in front of the boards or meet some C-level exec somewhere and have this discussion and the light bulb goes on?
Well, I'm now retired, Ed, so this is something I would have done in the past. It's not something I necessarily would want to do anymore. But there are plenty of other people like me out there that have been working in this industry for many, many years, are aware of all of these issues. And the message is slowly trickling down. You know, so he posts on LinkedIn. Chris Debner, obviously, he's very well known. He's put posts out there. You've got Global Tax Network, who support a number of companies with business travel as well. You've got the business tracker software as well, which is very, very well known. You know, all on top of the usual sort of Ernst & Young, you know, Big Four,
Right.
etc. Probably can't mention names, but we all know who we're talking about.
Right. Okay, let's go on to smaller companies that are growing, you tech firms for sure. And, you know, they do everything tech, Zoom, you know, or Clubhouse or, you know, whatever. Like I got 2 calls, one this morning, one yesterday, and the people were here and there, and they both called me using WhatsApp. Right?
Yeah.
And so it just rings on this. I don't care, you know.
Yeah.
And then they send me a recorded follow-up message on this, right? And then I get some video clips as well. So, I mean, it's really different than just a couple of years ago. And I would think the pandemic and working from everywhere and the safe factor that is inherent in the HR world these days, because they're trying to figure out what to do. And not to mention the use of real estate, but, you know, what to do with people. And how do you, in your view, figure out reward programs for virtual work?
That is a very difficult question. First of all, I think it depends where you're sitting. So that is, for me, is the starting point. Where you sit, where your tax resident is what's critical, because each location will have its own payroll structure. And therefore, you should also be on local contract.
Local, right. Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, again, it comes back to compliance. So just permitting that to even happen without going through a whole assessment of the compliance is irrational, and, you know, it's just not good business practice at all. You know, you need to start with the compliance. Assuming you have a compliance situation, longer term, you really need to be with a local contract with local payroll, local currency. Other things can be done, yes, but on a more temporary interim basis.
So how do you manage performance when people are virtual?
I think that's very simple. I mean, you need a good performance management system, and they have objectives. I mean, we're all grown-ups. I think gone are the days when people should be clocking in and clocking out. You know, this isn't 1950. People are grown up, they're professional, they don't need to be told what to do or when to do it. They have their objectives. They you know, if they're professional and they're a high level, they don't need all this hand holding. I know when I'm performing well, I know when I'm not performing well. I don't need someone to tell me.
So in the past, I'm reading this, you've managed programs for 100 to nearly 3,000 assignees and directly managed expatriation and remuneration of C-suite personnel,
Yeah.
which means the people who oversee all this stuff or the
They're
people who...
very, very senior people, CEOs and CXOs, so chief
People who were
financial officers.
sent on assignment or in general?
No, I mean, that's what I call, these are the executives that I'm talking about.
Right.
But I've, whether it's operator level or the CEO, you cover the whole gambit in 20 years of this job.
So do you have younger people who are where you're in a mentor position, like now, or do you have that interest level?
Currently, no, not anymore so much. I mean, with STC, for example, I took 2 guys into my team, neither of whom had the GMS certification. They hadn't really worked so much in this area. One guy was already doing it, a fantastic young guy called Khalid. And then I've got another guy in, Tarek, as well, to support on the whole process side, all the mentoring, the business partnering, etc. So I'm still in contact with them. They've got my number, we're WhatsApping, they can contact me on LinkedIn. So I said I will continue to support them as much as possible.
So let's talk a little bit about GEC, Global Employment Companies. So did you oversee that action, or did you just say, oh, we're not doing that? Or
it depends. There's not a one size fits all. So in Tetra Pak, for example, we had a global employment company. In Etisalat, we were thinking about one, but we didn't really have enough assignees to justify it. Baker Hughes, who I worked with, we had 3 global employment companies, and it's all down to the tax planning. Ultimately, it's about minimizing PE risk, but it's a very expensive option, so it's not for all companies, and it's not something I don't think companies can handle on their own. They need to engage with the big 4 consultants to really map out what is the right model and then the right location for the headquarters of that GEC. I mean, just for the benefit of those that aren't familiar with it, the idea is that you set up a company, which could be, Dave Limited, in the Netherlands or whatever, and you make it a non-profit center. So they have contracts out of the host. So it totally eliminates the PE risk, and you make it zero profit.
PE means what?
PE means permanent establishment.
And
so
that's got a whole bunch of tax flows.
That's got a whole bunch of corporate tax issues associated with it. So again, complicated area, definitely one to talk to your consultant about.
Is there a mix whereby, let's say you're the corporate, not a GEC, but you're corporate, and I'm working for XYZ GEC company, and I'm not working for you, but I'm doing work that will benefit your company?
Generally, a GEC is part of the overall corporation. So you can talk, there are things out there called EORs and PEOs. So EOR is employer of record. PEO, I've now completely forgotten what that stands for, but it's
professional employment
organization. That's right. Something along those lines. But these are third parties. But these are great solutions where you have a startup. So, for example, if you want to expand and you don't currently have an entity in that third country, you can work with a PEO, EOR to set up, one, to help set up your company, but two, act as the in situ employer. So it's a kind of a third party arrangement where we're now going to send Dave to Singapore, but we've got no entity in Singapore. So you would work with a PEO in Singapore. They become his employer. They pay him, but you pay them. They handle all the immigration.
So it's like a reimbursement of some kind, but without calling it.
It is. It's very similar to a GEC, but it's not. It's completely independent. So they would do it for many companies.
So let's bring this down to an elementary level, because many of our audience are younger and they're hungry for knowledge and they're trying to cut through stuff. So I'm in San Diego, but there's work to be done in Monaco. All right. And there's no office, or there used to be an office, but it was closed. So I'm going to sit here at dining room table in San Diego, but my days and nights are going to be working for the company in Monaco and trying to penetrate that market more in sales, taking care of situations and blah, 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 right? So that's an international virtual assignment, right? So am I liable for tax in Monaco, even though I never get there?
You may not be personally, but the company potentially could be. So because of your commercial activity, you're starting to potentially to form a PE in Monaco. So individually, you're okay, but you're putting the company at risk. I got to be just a little aside here. I'm not a trained tax professional, so do not take this advice as being absolutely correct. It could be totally wrong, but based on experience, that would be my interpretation.
Good. Well, this is really, really helpful. So I'm looking at your list of specialties. One of them is logistical expertise. Now, this goes back to your engineering process thinking, right?
Well, logistics really goes back to the days of when I was working in a relocation company. So that was more around all the household goods move. So this is more of the service side of the expatriation.
Yeah. Now, under another one here is program optimization. So is this the relocation process?
No, this is more around looking at the policy, making sure you've got the right allowances, that you really understand the costs. You understand the end-to-end process, you understand the total cost of employment. But more importantly, again, it goes back to the talent management. You don't let contracts run and run and run. So for every month that you keep someone on assignment longer than was originally intended, you're costing the company money. Because expats can cost anything from double to 12 or possibly even 20 times the cost of a local, depending on the level and the country.
So vendor management, this is probably something you know real well. So
I do crank on the vendors. Yes, I've been involved a lot in terms of, I've done so many RFPs the last sort of 6 years. I've got hundreds of spreadsheets of costs. So yeah.
So I'm not asking you to name names or anything, okay? But some of the RMCs are not going to be around in the same shape that they're in today because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And they're not the only ones who are impacted. Me too. But what does that do to a company that needs the services, not today, but 6 months from now, they're going to need the services of an RMC? And boy, what are they doing? And the costs go on, and yet there's no revenue?
It's a very difficult question. I personally feel there will be consolidation. We actually onboarded an RMC as part of the role I had in STC. That was an RFP process. We started off with about 12, we came down to 7, shortlisted it to 5. You know, we got sort of down to 3, eventually selected one, onboarded them. But the onboarding process is really kind of not on hold. It's just ready to go. It's basically future-proofing the program.
So without action, in other words, movement, it's all conjecture, right? It's just.
Unfortunately, it is. Yeah. It's like cooking. Okay, what do we want? You know, destination services, immigration, household goods, etc. You know, orientation, all these kind of services, temporary housing, all of those, but not yet. So let's get the processes in place. Let's agree to sign the contract. But there's no retention payment, and there's no guarantee that they'll still be in business by the time you start sending your expats.
Who's there to trust? A piece of paper which shows an organization chart, or this person who you've gotten to know and like and feel good and trust, who's not going to be there? Probably.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of relationship benefits. I would say a lot of it is done on trust. You need very good relations. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just right now it's a horrible situation. I really feel for the RMCs.
So as we come to a close here, schooling. Let's just say that transferees have kids, right?
Yeah. And
traditionally, the company is stuck with this huge bill for the private school, right? And lodging and all this stuff, all right? With the advent of online schooling and professional, fully accredited and nonstop capabilities, doesn't that save a lot of money? I mean, you still have to pay for the online, but it's a fraction of.
Yeah. My view on this one would be, unless the child has physically moved to a new country, nothing's changed. Their world has not changed, and therefore there's no entitlement to any schooling. So I wouldn't approve anything. So Dave, I'm sorry, your kids aren't going to get schooling unless they come with you to Houston and they are physically attending a school, or they have to, enroll in that school.
And in which case, then the company will be willing to pay all that money.
I believe so. There has to be. You should never disadvantage the children, in my view. They didn't ask to be relocated. They've had to say goodbye to all their friends. I think you do everything you can to support them.
Same with the spouse, partner?
Same with the spouse. Absolutely. I think 80% of failures I've seen, 80% of assignment failures are related to unhappy spouses.
And a lot of that is predictable at the start, right? If you have
It can be. Sometimes you get some, I'll be polite and use the term characters. Basically, you're going to have trouble with this person from
right away.
Time. From the opening 3 seconds of the phone call, you know what they're going to be like.
And if you have an in-person coffee, something, you see right through whether they're putting on an act or something.
Yeah, there's a lot you can learn in the first few seconds. I mean, I would say, though, to be fair, the majority of the expats I've dealt with over the years have been, very normal, shall we say. But you do get the odd prima donna.
Oh, the one with the purple hair, but I don't discriminate. This has been an education for me, and I think for our audience. Dr. Adrian Moule, thank you very much for being on Global TV.
Thank you, Ed.
Please come back.
Well, we'll see. Let's see what happens.
Okay, take care
All
now.
right. Never say never.
Ciao.
Take care. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.